Good evening, everyone. I was hoping that music would go off because I don't have control of the music.
I do.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to Ignite After Dark. This is exciting. This is the first time that I have taught Ignite After Dark. My name is Tony Greer. I'll be your host this evening. I am the operating principal of the Keller Williams Pueblo Market Center in Southern Colorado, where we are proud to be number one in market share, and we have been since about 2000, maybe 17. Um, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I got my license on 9/11, almost 25 years ago. And I worked for an independent. Then I moved to another big brand for a couple of years. Wasn't really a good match. Discovered this fledgling company called Keller Williams in 2004. Came to work here, and a couple of years later, I was an owner. And then 2 weeks before the mortgage meltdown in 2008, I became the operating principal. Welcome to leadership. Get out your checkbook. Um, I have done a lot of things inside the system. I am formerly a MAPS coach, operating principal. At one point, I was the only paid employee at my market center. I was the receptionist and the MCA and the team leader and the trainer and the managing broker and the operating principal. Not something that you should do, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But we were relaunching this market center at the time. And in the meantime, I have been a mega agent since about 2000. Well, 2003, I didn't know what a mega agent was. That's a Keller Williams term. But um, in my second year in real estate, I closed 170 transactions. And that's the year that I picked up my first assistant. And the last 6 years, my wife and I have had a small team closing about 105 to 110 transactions a year. And I've done everything wrong that can be done wrong. And I've done a few things right. I have taught Ignite since before it was called Ignite. It used to be called a class called Camp 443, which was four listings, four closings in 3 months. And that program was 12 weeks long. So we've really condensed it. And that's enough about me. How's everybody doing? You having a good time? Enjoying Ignite? I'll take that as a yes.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. Excellent. If I could only take one class in the system, it would probably be Ignite. And the interesting thing is, in a nation full of people, we've got about 28 people attending, and I think it's a missed opportunity. I've taken Bold 10 times, and that's probably enough for me. But whenever Bold is in the area, I like to attend Bold to support that because it's a lot of pressure on the market centers to get people in attendance, and being in a sparsely populated area, it's all hands on deck. So I probably didn't set out to take Bold 10 times, but I will tell you that Bold came out in 2009. I was really struggling in my business, being the number one agent in my area and specializing in land development and new construction. In my neighborhood, we sold about 120 homes a year, and that number went down to two. And we sold two new homes a year for 5 years. So I really had to learn how to be in real estate 8 years after I got my license. Bold saved my career. In fact, I had to borrow the money to attend Bold the first time. And if that is you, then by all means, I recommend you borrow the money and go to Bold. It not only changed my career, but it also changed my life. Let's see now. Make sure I got this slide going. All right, so we're going to talk about this a couple of times in the class. You've probably heard it a couple of times each day you've taken Ignite, but we must comply with the TCPA laws because the penalty is heavy. And also a disclaimer that when we talk about profit share in these classes and we talk about agent compensation, they're general numbers and each individual's results will vary. Let's see. Commissions completely negotiable, so there is no fixed commissions. And if someone tells you that you're spamming them and they want to be taken off of your mailing list, if they do that through the KWS system, that's automatically going to happen. If not, you're going to have to remove that yourself. And all these materials are copyrighted. So today is the first day of lead follow-up. It's the third segment of Ignite, and you've covered becoming the real estate expert of choice by building your value proposition. You've also covered generating leads through prospecting and marketing. Today, our focus is just going to switch to lead follow up, where you can make or break your business. There's a lot of sayings about this, but honestly, the fortune is in the follow up, whether you're working hard to generate leads or you're buying leads or however those leads come to you. It's all for naught if you don't have a good systemized lead follow up program. It is very rare that someone is ready to buy or ready to sell in the first conversation, although it does happen and it's great. Sometimes it can take up to 10 years to convert a lead. And I've often said this. I recruited a mega agent several years ago, and I met with that woman and I called that woman at least once a quarter for 11 years before she finally said, "Okay, you're not going to go away. I'm going to get in business with you." This segment of Ignite will help you turn a possible business into a probable business and then probable business into a profitable business. I was talking with someone earlier today about how I began my career, and I was very much a marketing based business, and I wanted to be number one at any cost. And lo and behold, I became number one. I also did not make any money because I never imagined what it was like to have a profitable business. I just figured that if I was number one in my market, I would be profitable. And it turns out those things aren't connected. There's a correlation between being number one and being profitable, but there is no causation. So today, we're going to engage in our daily success system, which you've heard about before. And we're going to establish your core activities for your entire real estate career. You will be doing this every day if you intend to be successful. Okay? All right. So we're in our third segment. Thank you, Daisy. Sometimes it's nice to get some feedback, visual or audio, because we, as instructors or hosts, we're left wondering if our mic is still on. So we're in the lead follow-up program, and we're going to talk about Section 10 and Section 11 today, keeping every lead and following up with leads. So the lead follow-up process is essential to converting leads into business from the moment you've captured a lead and put it in your database. So before we start, let's hear about some progress with your success system. Has anybody had any breakthroughs in the past couple of weeks? Oh, this is going to be a long 2 hours. This is going to be a long 2 hours. Um, let's see. If somebody is there anybody here with a birthday in January? Sarah? Sarah, let's hear about your progress in
Well,
your success system.
so far, I'm brand new to all this. I've been all a real estate agent for 5 minutes. So
Excellent.
I'm just trying to absorb and learn what I can. I've gotten a few leads so far. Nothing's led anywhere. You get the call me back or nobody answers the phone or an email.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I'll figure it out.
You figured out. It's time on task over task. Time on task over time. I promise this is not going to be the Tony show, but I do have a couple of things for you, Sarah, and anyone else who wants to listen. Number one, I'll tell you, this happened to me today. This is a real story. I was busy. I was in a conversation, and and it was just a conversation with an agent in the office. And I got a call from Burlington, Colorado. If you're from Colorado, you know that there's not very many people in Burlington, but a lot of telemarketers park their phone numbers there. So I never answer the phone when it's from Burlington. Burlington is about a 2 or 3 hour drive from me, and it's always somebody trying to sell me something. So I ignored it. And then 15 minutes later, an agent in my office called me who was sick. He was homesick and he called me and he said, "Could you do me a favor? I'm sick, but this guy wants to see this property. Could you run out and show him this property really quick?" And so I dropped what I was doing and I go out to meet this guy. He texted me the information. Guess what? The guy was from Burlington, Colorado. And when I introduced myself, he said, "Hey, I tried to call you earlier, but you didn't pick up." I'm like, "Yeah, because I thought you were a telemarketer." So it's not, Sarah, it's not uncommon for people to ignore your phone call if they don't have you in their contacts because you might just be a telemarketer. The other thing
Yeah.
I'll tell you that I got my first listing. I told you I got my license on 9/11. About 2 weeks later, I had signs on order and I went to dump my trash at a developer's office. His office manager said, until you get your trash can delivered, I just moved to the area. I didn't know anyone. And I went inside and I said, "Hey, I got my license, my real estate license. If you hear of anybody that wants to buy and sell." And she said, "As a matter of fact, the developer is going to fire his real estate agent, not happy with him." 2 weeks in the business, I said, "When can I meet this person?" And she said, 4 a.m. He's a road builder. And so at 4 a.m. the next morning, I got up and I met him in his office and asked him for his business. And he asked me some questions I didn't have the answers to because I just got into business. I worked for an independent brokerage with no training. And I said, "Well, that's a great question. I don't have the answer. Can I come back tomorrow?" And so on and so forth. On the 10th consecutive day of meeting this guy at 4 a.m., he said, "I guess you're not a quitter. So prepare your listing agreement." My very first listing was 72 residential lots. Now, that's a cool story, but here's what happened next. I went home to high five my wife and tell her what a great real estate agent I was when I got a call from the developer. I had this listing signed maybe 4 hours. And he said, "I need you to come down to my office. There are two people down here that want to buy some land." And I wrote my first two contracts on the same day. I wrote my first listing agreement, and I had my first two closings 10 days later. So it doesn't matter where you are in your career, these things can happen. I was in the right place at the right time. I worked for that man for the next 11 years. I ended up selling 630 residential lots and 250 brand new homes. And I'm still following up with people in that neighborhood and selling those homes. I didn't know anyone in my community. I had just moved here from California, and I have been in this business ever since. And it's very rewarding, and it also sucks a lot. So focus on the rewarding part and just try to look past the sucks a lot part. All right. So, anybody besides Sarah experience any challenges while we're reaching out and having conversations with people? Not everybody's doing great. This is awesome.
I do. I do, Tony. I contacted at least 10 people last year, and I in a way give up for a minute, and now I'm trying to reconnect with the 10 from last year and start meeting new people 2 weeks ago. So
There is business everywhere, and even in most markets today, where business is not as great as it was. And I heard a report that number of home sales in the United States in 2025 was the lowest number since 1996, even lower than the worst year in the Great Recession. And still, in my very small market, there are 40,000 people living in the rural community where I live. There has never been a day when there wasn't a closing. And the real estate market is agnostic. They don't care where you came from or where you're going. They care that you care and you're able to answer your phone. And if your phone's not ringing, then you make someone else's phone ring or text or DM. And we're going to do some of that exercise today. So let's move on. By the end of the day, You're going to be able to describe the benefits of establishing your system of lead follow-up. You're going to apply the 19 to connect touch program with your leads. And you're going to be able to explain the importance of cementing your relationship with your leads. Excuse me. To start thinking about what you're going to learn today, let's consider what questions you might have. And what about lead follow up you'd like to know more about? You can look back at your notes from previous sessions, especially the last segment of lead generation. So, can somebody just shout out? It's really hard to present and read the chat box, but let me hear a story. Somebody tell me a story.
Well, I don't have like a story per se, but like I've been really starting to recently fiddle around with the command, and I must say like I'm starting to like the tools, but I'm trying to figure out like how do I connect with my sphere? Like do I say these things like, do I do blogs or, do I do market snapshots? Like, how can I consistently like add value to their lives without being like, oh gosh, she calling me again, like um so I've been playing around with a few things on like RPR, coming up with like BuzzFeed like articles that I could put on my KW website so I could like funnel them there, and that's why I came to this class because I feel like I just have one or two ideas, but I really don't know. I'm very green, very green. So I really want to learn how to naturally connect with my sphere that they position me in their mind as the go-to person, or let me refer this person to her, like how to be that person in their mind is what I'm asking. I'm sorry, I didn't have a story. I
Oh,
had a
that's
question.
okay, Angel. You made some great comments there and some great points. So,
Okay.
excuse me. So, for me, believe it or not, I'm really shy. I'm okay being in front of a crowd, not so good with being in a crowd. My wife, also in the real estate business, she is a connector. She loves social events. I follow behind her. She takes me and she introduces me to everyone, and I say hi. But left to my own devices, I'd rather just be in my living room doing anything besides talking to people. What I've found that works for me is every day I'm reading something that I think will add value to a conversation. And at this point, 25 years in the business, it's just something that comes naturally. For instance, I just caught myself as I'm thinking about this. I just told you that last year we sold fewer homes in the United States than any year since 1996. Many of you probably hadn't heard that before, so it's something that added a little bit of value to the conversation. One thing that I do is I listen to the market, or I'm sorry, the Housing Wire podcast every day. It's 15 to 20 minutes. There's always something in there good so that I have something to talk about. Now, when I call you, if Angel, if you're in my sphere of influence and I call you, I'm not going to say, hey, did you know what I heard today? You know what I'm saying? Is I was just thinking about you. How are things going? Everything okay? What can I help you with? It doesn't have to be real estate related. I might not even ask you for a referral. The point is, I want to be in the top of your mind when you think of real estate. I want you to think about Tony. And if people, almost everyone is interested in real estate. I always wear logoed shirts or a name tag or something of that nature, even at the store. I'm standing in line at the store and someone says, oh, you're in real estate. How's the real estate market? Everybody wants to know what's going on in their neighborhood. So if I am not bold enough to just come out and talk about real estate, I'm going to talk about you for a while, and perhaps you're going to ask me about real estate, especially if you're in my close circle and you know that I just started this career. You want the best for me. You may say, how can I help you? And I say, well, I'm glad you asked, because if you hear of someone that needs to buy or sell real estate, please give me their contact information and please get their permission for me to contact them. Um, if you have 10 conversations a day, you will no doubt stumble upon some opportunity. When I worked when I was brand new in the business and working for the independent, the only thing I learned from that company was how to have an open house. And I had two open houses on Saturday and two open houses on Sunday every day for about 3 years, or every weekend for about 3 years. I met a lot of people there. If you have a neighborhood that people are interested in, people will come. Did I get skunked occasionally? Yes. I learned to take a list of people that I needed to call. Now, 25 years ago, we didn't have smartphones and Wi-Fi everywhere. It was much more difficult. I would print out a list of people that I wanted to connect with, people who had asked me questions about real estate in the past, etc. And I would just call them and say, I'm following up on our previous conversation. Have you had more time to think about that? Because you asked me this question, and here's the answer that I found. Um, so just having a conversation and letting people know that you're in the real estate business is going to work. I promise you. If shy Tony that wants to sit in the corner and be invisible can do it, then any of you can do it as well. Anybody else? Oh my goodness, we're 20 minutes into this. We're on slide number one. Um, okay. Who can remember how we define a lead? This thing on.
I think it's someone that you have not established two-way communication with. That close.
It's close. A lead is a person who has shown interest in the service you provide, and you have their contact information, although they may have yet to engage in a two-way conversation. A lead, and it can be defined in different categories, um, but a lead is someone that might lead to some compensation. The goal of lead follow-up is to follow up with a lead with the goal of entering a two-way conversation. Now, we don't do a lot of endorsement of buying leads online. I'm not going to mention any of those company names. But if I'm advertising somewhere and they say, you have a lead, call them immediately. The very first thing I do, this is my process, the very first thing I do is I send them a text message. And I created an auto text in my phone. Then I type in my initials, TRG, and it automatically changes that to, hi, this is Tony Greer with Keller Williams Performance Realty. And then I type my message. I understand that you're interested in buying a home in this area or selling a home in this area. How can I be of help? I wanted you to have my contact information. I'll be calling you shortly. And then I send them my V card from my phone. Then I'll call them a little bit later. I don't do this all immediately because I don't want to overwhelm them. Has anyone here ever asked for information online, filled out an online form, and then your phone immediately rings? And then rings again? And then rings again?
Yes.
Thank you, Daisy. Yeah. And so those people are not in the real estate business. Well, that was a good one. Those people are not in the real estate business because everybody knows that real estate agents will not call you 10 times in a row, right? But just think about that. There's something that interests you and you have a question. You want to talk to someone, but not right now. You might be at work where you can't take a call. You fill out the form and then you get a call immediately. Oh gosh, I don't know who this is, but I hope it's not those people because I can't have a conversation. I hope they call me again after work. And then they call you again. I want this information, but I don't have time. They're not saying no to you. They're saying this is not the right time for me. And I'm sure most of you have experienced the people who are selling you healthcare, or they're selling you an auto warranty, or they're trying to sell you leads, or they're looking for off-market sellers, or whatever. You just ignore them. But when you fill out a form and you ask someone a question, please reach out to me and tell me this. You want them to call you back. That was the biggest switch I had to flip in my brain. If it's a lead that I got online, they have asked me to answer a question. They have a question. They're waiting for me to call. It's my job to break through all the noise and show that I'm not going away until they tell me No. So, does lead follow-up only apply to leads? Well, I would say that every person in your database, whether they're a lead or a contact from your sphere of influence, requires follow-up so that when they have a real estate need, they immediately think of you. They don't think of, oh, which real estate agent should I call? See, you think you have so many competitors, but the reality is most of the people you think are competitors aren't competing with you because they're afraid to pick up the phone and answer someone's question. So your only job when you get a lead or put someone in your database as a sphere of influence is to stay in touch with them so you're the only real estate agent they know. Um, so how many other real estate databases are they in? Probably a lot, but most databases are just a list. They're not a to-do list. They're just a list of names and phone numbers and emails. Your database is your to-do list. We'll talk about that a little bit, I think, in the next section. So, how do you ensure that when they think of real estate, they immediately think of you? It doesn't take a lot. I used to send out a lot of postcards in my neighborhood, a lot of them. Like every week, I'd send postcards, and at that time, maybe it was $500 a week to send out postcards. I got a call from a guy and said, "Please take me off your mailing list. I'm tired of getting your postcards." And well, it wasn't my mailing list. I had hired someone, I think it was Personal Marketing Company or one of those, that just sent it out to the neighborhood. A couple years later, the guy called me, and I didn't think he would ever call me because he was angry with me for inundating his mailbox with postcards. And so when we finally met, I asked him, "Why'd you call me? You're annoyed at me." And he said, "Because you market the heck out of this neighborhood, and I need to sell now. So I need somebody that's not afraid to market the heck out of this neighborhood." So a no may be a not yes. And remember, they're not saying no to you. They're saying no, not right now, right? So I hope this helps you understand the importance of lead follow-up and the touches you make to the people in your database. And I want to add one more thing here. Many years ago, I saw Keller when we were coming out with Command. Keller stands up on front and he goes, Zillow knows when people are in the market to buy a house before those people know they're in the market to buy a house. How do they know that? Because people start shopping online 6 to 9 months before they're ready to make a move. They're just curious. You might have experienced this yourself. For me, it shows up with cars. I'm not really a car guy, but I like new cars. And I got a great car. There's nothing wrong with my car, or my other car for that matter. But I know that if I go online and start browsing at cars just to see, I mean, probably within 6 months, I'm going to have a new car. That's why I don't go to car sites anymore because I'm tired of buying cars. So the only way for you to beat Zillow to the punch is to regularly interact with those people that are in your database. All right, so let's take a look at this graphic. In fact, this graphic is the one that Keller was demonstrating when he had that conversation. So everyone in your database lives at some point along these waves. And you can see at the top, they're most likely to buy or sell real estate at the top of that wave. And then what happens? It's not really a curve like this. The
Are
day
you
they buy a
sharing your
house,
screen?
am I not sharing my screen?
No. Now you
How about
are.
now?
Perfect.
There you go.
All right. I'm glad you
Thank
said
you.
that. We could have been here for another half hour without the graphic. Um, so at the top of that screen where it says, the top of the wave where it says move, the day they buy a house is the least likely time for them to buy another house, usually, right? So we don't just forget about them because on average, they're going to move every 7 to 10 years. So if you're committed to your real estate career, you got to stay in touch with them. Now, they get down to the bottom the day after they buy a house, they're starting to progress towards their next purchase. So you stay in touch with them. You invite them to parties. You send them coupons in the mail. Whatever your follow-up program is, you're going to do that regularly for the next 7 to 10 years. Now, if you had only one lead in your database, it would probably be pretty easy to follow up with them regularly. You put something in your calendar, call Charlie Brown, send Charlie Brown a text message, send him a postcard. But if you have 1,000, how on earth are you going to keep track of that? So that's why we have smart plans. So if I gave you a lead close to the top of the wave, what would you perceive about that lead? Well, Tony, I would think that they were ready to buy. Those are the ones we like, ready to buy. We can't always count on being at the right place at the right time. So we have to be as close to everywhere as possible all the time. So you'd most likely perceive this as a high quality lead. They're close to being ready to purchase again. What if I gave you a lead that was right after they purchased a house? I already gave you the answer. You'd think this was a bad lead. But there is no such thing as a bad lead. Every lead is somewhere on this wave. And by the way, if they're not ready to buy or sell themselves, on average, everyone you communicate with is going to know 5 people that are going to move this year. That means if you have 100 people in your database and you're communicating with them regularly, you have access to 500 buyers and sellers. So if they're not hot right now, they must still have future potential. As a real estate agent, following up with all leads with frequency and intensity is the key to remaining in close emotional proximity. So any lead approaches the top of the wave and they're ready to purchase, they think of you. This is where the importance and value of lead follow-up comes into play. Any questions? When do we get to the good part? That's the question, right? Think of the leads that enter your database through your lead generation effort as possible business. Lead follow-up helps turn the leads from possible into probable. And once you close the probable business, your goal should be to have a profitable business. In 2021, NAR, their profile of home buyers and sellers, says that the opportunity that lead follow-up can provide to your business is tremendous. NAR collected research that shows that when selecting an agent to use, 73% of buyers only talk to one agent. Think about that for a minute. If you're the first real estate agent they talk to, you have a 3 out of 4 chance of getting the business. 82% of sellers only contacted one agent. So if you're the first agent to talk to a seller, you have an 82% chance of being the agent that gets the business. Since the data shows that most buyers and sellers only talk to one agent before deciding to do business, what are you going to do to ensure that you're the first agent as many times as possible? Give me an idea. No one? No
Be
one?
in contact with your sphere.
That's right. You're not bothering them. You're providing a service. Now, if they tell you don't call me anymore, then flag them as do not call and don't call them anymore. Okay. All right. If you're not first or second in their mind, you probably won't get the business. And many years ago, when I started in the business, there was a company called Hobbs Herder. I think they might be mentioned in the MREA book. But they went to a shopping mall. Remember when we used to go to shopping malls and they had survey companies in shopping malls? And they went into a shopping mall and they surveyed a bunch of people in the mall and they said, who are the top 3 real estate agents in this community? And sure enough, 3 agents rise to the top. More often than not, they were talking about these 3 agents. This company, Hobbs Herder, a marketing company, then litters the neighborhood surrounding the mall with postcards, 8 postcards over 8 weeks. They made up a fake persona, a fake agent that didn't exist. And they marketed this agent as the top agent. They went back to the mall and they did a survey again. And guess who's one of the top 3 agents? One of the top 3 agents is a person that doesn't even exist because people saw this person's name in a positive light over and over and over. And it only took 8 times over 8 weeks. It's not that much. So, meeting in person and making a phone call are the touches that will have the greatest impact on the relationships you're building. Human beings are pack animals. We like to be around other people. We like to talk to other people. Even people like me who don't think we like to talk to other people start missing talking to other people when we don't have anyone to talk to. Email and text are weaker when it comes to forming connections and bonds. And why is that? Because we get bombarded with emails all day, every day. It's so easy to ignore an email or put it off until tomorrow and then tomorrow never comes. So a phone call or an in-person conversation, the most powerful thing you can do. So while you lead follow up, you're going to use a variety of touches because there are no hard and fast rules other than time on task over time is the way to win. So you're going to mix up your talking with people on the phone or in person with your mails and with your social media, etc. Okay, ahas from this section. I don't know if any of the other hosts mentioned it, but AHA is an acronym for Agents Helping Agents. If I'm sitting in this class and I hear that you got something out of it while I was busy writing a note, I might not have heard that part. And when you say it out loud, then I get a second chance to catch it. Anybody get any ahas from this section?
Tony, I'm thinking about what you said about the wave that
Yeah,
a person who just bought a house is obviously not your most next likely customer. So we need to be really good at finding ways to be involved with what they're thinking about besides just selling them a house.
absolutely. So I like to have a reason to connect the next time. So it was very difficult for me because, yeah, guess what? I'm a man. We're not real strong listeners, generally speaking. And so I had to really work at listening because a lot of times I'm thinking about what I'm going to say next. I'm in sales. But if I'm listening and I hear something that's important to you, and let's say maybe, sorry, you say, well, I couldn't take your call when you called the first 12 times because I was at a baseball game. I love baseball. I go, oh, that's interesting. But I'm gonna make a note that you like baseball. And then it gives me a reason to talk to you in another week or two because all of a sudden the reticular activator, if you don't know what that is, I'll explain in a moment, but all of a sudden my brain is watching baseball. I have no interest in baseball, but I know you're interested in baseball. So I happen to see a baseball headline and I go, yeah, um, maybe this guy'd like to talk about that. Gives me a reason to call and I say, hey, Joe, I was thinking about you the other day. I saw this headline about baseball and what they're thinking about doing. You got any thoughts on that? And so it makes a more powerful connection because now we've got something in common. I'm not going to tell you I don't care about baseball. I'm going to tell you I don't know that much about baseball. It sounds really interesting. And I saw this thing and it made me think of you. Now, how do you feel when someone says, I was thinking about you the other day? Positive or negative?
That feels great.
Yeah.
Positive.
Right, yeah, for the most part, unless we're exes, and then maybe you're like, "Hey, stop thinking about me." But generally speaking, when you hear that someone was thinking about you, it gives you a little dopamine charge, right? So this might be a good time to talk a little bit about the reticular activator. I said this term that sounds kind of fake. Does anybody here know what the reticular activator system is?
Oh,
Okay, great. When I first heard the term, I thought it was made up, but it's not. The reticular activator system is a part of your brain. It sits down at the reptilian part of your brain, and it filters out all the chaos of the world. So whatever's going on around you, if you're focused on this conversation, you might not you might not hear, the big truck that drove by, or you might not hear something that happens routine. If you live by rail, I grew up by railroad tracks. I never heard the train. I grew up like 100 yards from the railroad tracks, but I never heard the train because my brain just filtered it out. But maybe you've had this experience. Maybe you're reading a book and you see a new word and you go, "What's that word? I never heard that word." You look it up. You go, "Oh, that's what that means." And then a day or two later, you're reading something else and out pops that word again. Or I think they used to call it the yellow Jeep phenomena, where you think about buying a yellow Jeep, and then all of a sudden you see yellow Jeeps all around. See, your brain has filtered out all that information that it feels like it's not important to you, and it's going to reserve your attention for things that are important. A siren, flashing red lights, a baby crying, somebody says, "Help me, I'm having a heart attack," something like that, always breaks through. But if it's just idle chatter, your brain has a good way of ignoring that because there's so much information being bombarding us all day long, every day. Our brain just does us a favor and filters it out. When you hear about something and you hear about it more than once, the reticular activator says, "Hey, this must be important." So if I called you, say, every other week or every week for 8 weeks, we talked about real estate, I met you at an open house, and I told you about this, and I told you about interest rates, or whatever, suddenly your brain says, real estate must be important. I'm going to let real estate information pop through, and I'm going to tie that real estate feeling with this person who keeps talking to me about real estate. And next thing you know, somebody who you asked for a referral that said they can't think of anyone, all of a sudden at work, they overhear someone talking about buying or selling, and they're looking for a good agent. And they'll say, "I know one. I know one." So the reticular activator system, or sometimes called the RAS, is a real system in your brain there for your protection, but it doesn't use logic. So when you're following up with leads, what your goal is to open up that filter that everyone has so that they hear about real estate conversations and they connect those real estate conversations with you. All right, let's move forward. Here we go. How to lead follow-up. So just like your intention to be strategic with your lead generation efforts, you should also be strategic with your lead follow-up efforts. Think about this. You're digging a hole, you're looking for gold, you know there's gold here somewhere. You're digging, you're digging, you're digging. You see signs of gold, but you don't see any gold. Finally, you strike gold. Do you then just go away for lunch and leave this hole full of gold unattended? Or do you protect that gold and make sure that nobody else gets your gold? Go out and get your own gold. When you've done the hard work of finding a lead, for heaven's sake, just don't throw that lead out there to chance and hope they come back. You stay on top of it. My grandfather, I grew up in Missouri. My grandfather used to say, "Be like a snapping turtle. Snapping turtle gets a hold of you. They won't let go until lightning strikes." You want to be like a snapping turtle. Sorry, the Missouri comes out in me sometimes. Being thoughtful about who you will follow up with and leveraging the highest value touches that yield the greatest results will help you convert leads at the highest level. So if you'll turn to the fortune is in the follow-up mind share in your participant guide, mind share is gained through positioning yourself in front of your leads frequently with relevant and timely information. When I was speaking with Angel earlier, I was telling you every day I'm listening to something. For me today, it's the Housing Wire podcast. I listen to that every morning. It comes out 5 days a week. There's always information in there that I can use with a conversation. Today, there was a conversation about possibly being able to borrow money from your 401k or IRA to purchase a house. So I think about who in my database doesn't have quite enough for a down payment, but they have a job, so I know they have a retirement account. Then I can say, listen, I was thinking about you today because I heard this article about this program and I thought it might interest you. Would you like me to send you some information? If I come from contribution, the law of reciprocation takes effect. And now people feel sort of obligated to keep the conversation going. I do you a favor. You naturally want to do me a favor at some time in the future. Um, so your goal is to open the door to two-way communication in addition to getting these people to think about you anytime they think about real estate. And going back to our reticular activator conversation, another goal is to get them thinking about real estate so they see it everywhere. So through Ignite, you've been introduced to two different systems that engage your leads and contacts and help you gain mind share. Do you remember what those were? They start with numbers. I'm going to check every so often, make sure this thing is on. All right. Well, here we go. We got the 19 to connect and the 36 to convert. So these are the recommended systems for touch campaigns you were first introduced to during the lead generation segment. With leads, we're going to specifically use the 19 to connect. Now, 25 years ago or 20 years ago, if you read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book that came out about 2003 or 2004, that was the 8x8. It only took 8 touches. Now, because information services are so prevalent, it takes 19 to break through the noise. So, to review this 19 to connect, we've got 4 phone calls. We've got 12 touches that are either a monthly email or a newsletter or a market report or a video of some sort. You got 2 touches that are related to promotional direct mail and 1 touch that is a client event or a party or something of that nature so you can get in front of them in person. The intent of these touches is to spread out over a calendar year, which equates to about once every 3 weeks. It sounds like a lot until you think, well, it's every 3 weeks. You would have forgot about me in 3 weeks. In fact, you'll probably forget about me tomorrow, right? So I got to be in touch with all of you very frequently if I ever expect you to refer business to me. The goal of your communications is to establish a formal relationship and open two-way communication. Now, keep in mind that this is just a list. It's not prescription. Um, you can do these the way you want to do them. This way works. It's not the only way that works. It's one of the ways that works and the most common way to work. Um, so when do you think a lead should be added to your 19 to Connect Dutch program? And you're probably saying, I don't have one yet. But if you did, when would you put a lead into your 19 to Connect Touch campaign?
Immediately, right?
Right away.
Immediately. Immediately, yes, because you're going to move on and you're going to forget. If you develop a habit, remember KW Command is your command center. It's designed by agents, top producing agents, for agents, and the way we work, which is fairly unique to other industries. I can't say real estate agents are unique, but salespeople in general are very unique, right? We're a mile wide, inch deep. Anything shiny is going to get our attention. We're going to forget that sticky notes, bar napkins, all these other things, those are not systems. Those are, well, you can call them failing systems or lack of a system. But a lead should be added to your touch campaign immediately with a deadline of when the next time to communicate with. So you start work in the morning and you open your command center. And in there's going to be a list of tasks that need to be accomplished today. And I'm not talking about generic tasks like call 10 people. It's like call these 10 people because they're due. And the way that task list is populated is by your smart plans that you've put in place and they're connected to people. So it will be Call Charlie Brown and follow up today. Call Lucy and follow up today. It's time to send a text to Tony. It's time to send a referral to Tony. And if you've already got his mailing address, send him a check. This is how you're going to keep track of the thousands of people you're going to put in your database over time. And it sort of squelches the noise a little bit because you can just go in once you've got your smart plans assigned, you can just open up command and accomplish those task lists. And once you accomplish those tasks for the day, you feel like you've accomplished something. Even if you didn't get an appointment today, you're a little bit closer to getting an appointment just by way of the fact that you talked to 10 people. So by having this smart plan and opening up this task list, you can reach out quickly after the lead has engaged with you. I've found that people generally don't stop shopping online just because they were fortunate enough to talk to me, the best real estate agent that ever lived. I know that as soon as we hang up or as soon as we're finished exchanging emails, they're out looking for the next one. Now, as far as appointments go, the numbers that we talked about earlier, those hold true. 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5 times, if you're the first person to have an appointment, you're going to get the business. But until you get that appointment, you're just another name that I'm going to forget, right? So you've got to connect with me tomorrow. So I go, oh, yeah, I remember you. And then maybe a couple of days later, oh, yeah, I remember you. Yeah, thanks, right? Social media has taken, I think social media is nearly becoming more effective than text messaging for connecting with people. I know that it's rapidly overtaking communication with sphere of influence because a lot of people are on social media. And not everyone reads their email. So just think if that lead entered your database through a social media post, and then consider how quickly that person has already moved on to engaging and interacting with other people, then you've got this risk of missing out on that business unless you're on top of it. Like the guy that hired me that I thought for sure was not going to hire me because he was mad at me. He eventually said, yeah, you follow up more than anybody else. I'm going to do business with you. Um, what if the next person they contact is also a real estate agent and is better at engaging that lead than you are? What do you think happens then? Oh my goodness. The business is gone. Oh, I'm way behind. All right. So as you get started in real estate and you begin to generate leads during Ignite, there are some considerations you should make regarding your own lead follow-up plan. So when you look at this, let's take a couple of minutes and look at this slide, considerations for your lead follow-up program. What are your strengths? We have this tendency to try to improve our weaknesses. Why not improve your strengths and work around your weaknesses? If being on the phone doesn't work for you, try text, DMs on social media. What are some reasons I might have for contacting the lead? I told you, I feel like I have to contribute to every conversation. I'm constantly looking for things to talk about. I'm really not that good at thinking on my feet. You can probably tell by the way that I'm teaching this class. I need practice, right? I need something. I want to feel at the end of our conversation that I added value to you. And if I can't do that, it's probably in my own head, but I don't think I'm bringing my fair share to the conversation. How am I using conversations to let the person know I'm in real estate and how to contact me if they want to refer business? I'm not going to tell you every time I call, I love referrals. Please refer me business. That seems creepy to me. But I am going to let you know I'm in real estate. I say, hey, how's your day going? Oh, it's pretty good. I'm doing this. How about you, Tony? Oh, well, I went out and previewed 3 houses, and then I called 20 people that I needed to follow up with because real estate's a tough gig. There's a lot of competition, so I always try to do better than the next best person. So anything to mention that I'm in real estate without sounding like I'm spewing it on them, right? And then I got to make sure that each time I communicate with someone, they know that I'm in real estate. They know that I do like referrals. I don't have to say it every time, but they know how to get them to me, right? I'm time blocking this in my schedule. So I'm not making appointments at 8:30 a.m. Guess why? Because that's in my lead generation time. Your lead generation time might be 8:30 p.m. Be careful about TCPA violations, but still, whatever time it is, block it. And we have this saying, if it's not in your calendar, it doesn't exist. And if you erase it from your calendar, you must replace it in your calendar. So if your job is making widgets and you have to make 100 widgets a day because that's how you get paid, and you don't get paid until they're 100, and you take off on Monday because it's the Martin Luther King holiday, you don't just let all Monday's work go into the rearview mirror and this week we're going to only do 80 because we're not going to get paid. So if you miss a day because something comes up, you feel sick, make it up later. You got to time block these things. All right. So now you have a chance to think about and design your own 19 to connect plan. And so once you've got it set up, you should be able to implement it very easily. Now, we don't have a lot of time for these exercises because we're doing 2 3-hour classes in 2 hours a day. So put something in your calendar to address this gap in your business. What 19 to connect touch plan are you going to implement? There are plenty of them already programmed into command. And if you don't like what you see, go to the library and look for another one. But set aside time for you to look at this. Are you going to send a birthday card? Are you going to send market reports? Where are you going to get the market reports? Send 4 informative videos. Well, what's the source of that? It doesn't have to be all of these things, right? It could be anything. The most important part of this chart is the first 2 columns. You must call or text or have a conversation with people once a quarter. The best system I've seen for this is the DTD2 program. I hope you're familiar with that. You're dividing your database up by the first letter in their last name, and every week you're just focusing on 2 letters of the alphabet. That's 13 pairs of letters. There are 13 weeks in a quarter. If you just concentrate on calling the A's and the W's this week, then you're not going to be overwhelmed. Next week is B and E. You're only going to contact people with B and E's. It's a great way to balance your workload. But it could be anything. Just remember that you've got to communicate with them voice to voice 4 times a year. Text, you can, it's not as good, right? Now, 12 emails, that's once a month. What are you going to send them? You've got newsletters in command that you can modify and personalize in very short order and send those out automatically. And, maybe you're going to send them a Broncos calendar, or you guys are from the West Coast, the 49ers or the Rams or whatever, whoever it is, send them something that's going to have a high shelf life with your contact information that they're going to see frequently. And then maybe a community event. The neighborhood where I started out, each year I sponsored a neighborhood cleanup. That worked out really well till I ran over a guy's foot with my trailer. And then they wouldn't let me drive a truck with a trailer behind it anymore. So I moved on to another program. I just adopted the neighborhood and I had an annual spring cleaning garage sale. So I went door to door. I knocked on every door in the neighborhood, 600 homes, and told them that I was sponsoring a garage sale. About April of every year, I was providing signs, directionals, maps, change so they could make change, as well as some stickers with the prices and such on them. That worked very, very well for me for many years. A few years ago, I was coaching a new agent in my office, and I handed them that neighborhood, and they are still running that neighborhood garage sale, and it results in 2 or 3 sales a year just from and it's not even a week's worth of work. It's probably 2 days worth of work for 2 or 3 sales a year. So whatever ideas you have, you can find plenty of those online in command, etc. So moving on, when you've generated a lead and captured their information, Now you've earned the right to talk to them. If you haven't heard back and you don't know much about the person, your communication is going to have to be broader, but you can ask questions. You're really kind of doing a needs analysis, even though it doesn't feel like that. It's just conversational. Can anybody tell me what every person's favorite topic is?
Themselves.
Themselves. They don't care about me, they care about them. So I'm making the conversation more about me asking questions about them. And I'll answer your questions about me, but that's not what the call is about. You didn't know I existed yesterday. But I knew you existed and I'm interested. Um, so this is where you're going to start communicating your value with your own value proposition, which you put together in day 4. And if you don't have a lot of success behind you, then use your company statistics. I started this meeting with I work in the #1 real estate company in my area. Well, that's great. I still have time for one more. So when do you want to sell your house? We know that people are more likely to respond when the message you're communicating to them feels personal and relative to them. As you engage with your leads, you can uncover how to serve them better just by asking questions and being interested. If I send you a Broncos schedule and you're more like an Avalanche person, then I've missed the mark. So, how do I know if you're a sports fan? And if so, which sport is it? I'm going to ask you over time, right? I'm not going to interview you and ask it 64 questions at our first conversation. That's why I need to call you more and more often. So as you learn more about the people, then you segment your leads into more specific groups. And we talked about that in day 6. So you can communicate in a more detailed fashion. All right. So I'm not really a Broncos fan, but the Broncos happen to be having a good year. So it's really popular in Colorado to talk about the Broncos right now. Right. So I have to go online and I don't even know who their quarterback is, but if I'm going to have a conversation about it, I better find out. Right. Look beyond the who when you contact a lead. And the most basic way to start doing this is to craft your message based on the source the lead was generated from. So if it came through a social media post about first-time home buyers, then start talking to them about buying their first home, not about buying their first investment property, unless they came from an investment seminar, etc. All right, now we're talking about lead follow-up communication. Once you know the source of the lead, you can narrow your range of value. Knowing the source of the lead helps you learn how you compare a value with your communication. So a lead generated through a client referral will be communicated differently from a lead that came in from a random phone call. So you're going to be completing an activity on your own where you're going to be brainstorming statements and questions you can use when communicating with different lead sources in your database. And these can be incorporated then into a personalized 19 to connect touch campaign. I'm an old man, so I play pickleball. So I might start fishing around for other people that like to play pickleball so I can have that passionate conversation about pickleball. It's not going to be on the first date, but eventually, I can call you and say, "Hey, Joe, I was thinking about you the other day. I was playing pickleball and I learned this new trick. Have you heard of this? Whatever trick it is." It's just a real conversation, right? It's purposeful, but it doesn't feel purposeful to the other person. It's just a conversation. All right, now you want to record your top lead sources that you're going to focus on in your participant guide. Then brainstorm or write statements or questions that you could use when communicating with that segment of contacts. For example, for a call, you can write statements that can help uncover their motivation, like, "So why are you thinking about buying or selling?" Long time ago, 20-something years ago, I was listening to cassette tapes on scripts that handle floor calls or sign calls, right? And, I'm calling about 123 Main Street. Well, I know that if I give you the price, you're going to go, "Thank you," and you're going to hang up, right? In the days before the internet and Zillow and all these things. So instead, I would try to keep you on the line. "Oh, Thanks for calling about that one. That's a good one. Hang on for just a second while I look for that file. Got a lot of calls on that one today. While I'm looking for that, let me ask you, um, is that the neighborhood where you want to be? Oh yeah. What other neighborhoods are you interested in? Tell me more about that. What will that do for you, right? Why the neighborhood, etc. So you're asking questions in a friendly way just to stimulate the conversation. So, um, we're through another section. Any ahas from this section? I know we like to have three, but I'll settle for one.
I
I gotta
lo-
have one. You're making me look bad. This is being recorded.
I was gonna say about the 19 touches
Yeah,
that I learned.
excellent. So, um, is that something you think you would implement?
Yes, I want to try. Even though right now, well, I'm a new agent, just like
Uh-huh.
I don't know who it was in the beginning that they shared about that. I'm a new agent too, so all of this information is good information, yet overwhelming. Sounds
Sure.
daunting. Sounds like, oh my God, how am I gonna do that? But I'll figure it out.
So, how do I pronounce your name? Is it Mariella?
Yeah, yes.
Mariella?
Mhm.
So, it's interesting, when you're a new agent, and sometimes we feel like that's a handicap, but it's really an enabler because I don't know how many people you have in your phone that you communicate regularly or that would know who you are when you called. But being a new agent, you're the perfect opener. Hey, I was just calling to let you know I got my real estate license. I'm working over at Keller Williams. I'm so excited about this business and I'm just loving it so far. Do you know anybody that's thinking about buying or selling? Right? It's news. You getting your license and coming to work at Keller Williams is news. Um, One of the little tricks of the trade that I learned that I thought was fascinating when I first started recruiting experienced agents was how they would come to work at our company, which when I opened the first Keller Williams office in Southern Colorado, nobody had ever heard of Keller Williams. In fact, I hadn't heard of Keller Williams 2 months prior. And so when I would hire somebody and they would come in, we used to give them cards that just said, "Hey, in order to serve you better, I've moved to Keller Williams Realty." And we started to see immediately that experienced agents' business was spiking up after they went to Keller Williams. And so then other agents started taking notice. I noticed that when these people came to Keller Williams, their business spiked up. I want some of that too. And the reality of it was so simple. It wasn't that we did anything special, except that we gave them cards that they could send to people that they'd already done business with or that they already knew and cared about and had a real estate conversation. And then, well, I'm glad you reached out to me because my neighbor's thinking about moving and I couldn't think of anybody. So when are you available? So just tell them that you're excited about being in real estate. Could do it. Thank you, Mariella.
Thank you.
All right. So turn to your post lead follow up page in your participant guide. I have a question. Once you follow up with a lead and you have permission to have that two-way conversation, what do you think happens with that person? Well, I bet you they go into the top of your funnel. My favorite diagram. So after you get permission to have that two-way conversation, that lead is then going to become a contact in your database. I may have said that wrong. You're going to create a contact in that person's name in your database. It's not just going to happen. In Command, you're going to do this manually. And this also means that you're going to move that lead from the 19 to connect. It's done. It did its job. It connected you. And now you put them in the 36 to convert. You achieved the purpose of 19 to connect, which was to connect with that lead. And connecting with that lead doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do business with you, but it does mean that you're now in a position to build a stronger relationship. And that's why you continue into another touch campaign. Whether it's a lead or a contact in your database, every person should be on a touch campaign. I like to say they shouldn't be living in your database rent free. They should allow you to communicate with them. And if they say no, then take them off the list. Most of the time, they're not going to say no. Now, at the point where a lead opens the door for two-way conversations, You got to cement this relationship, and everyone in your database should be cemented right when you cemented right when you transition them to the 36 Connect. So, um, in your post lead follow-up page in your participant guide, what do you think the purpose of the one to cement touch campaign is? It says it right here on the slide. It's a high value touch that solidifies the relationship you've just established and opens the door for future interactions. So tell them about the service you provide, help set up a conversation for later, remind them of the interaction you had, and tell them how to refer business to you. Now, we're moving into the end of this section. Thank gosh, we're getting ahead. So, whether or not you've enjoyed the first hour of our session, um, you can either type in kwueval.com or you can scan this QR code. It's a virtual event. My name is Tony Greer, and the course is Ignite Session 10. Now, you're going to have to type my name in because I'm currently not a KWU certified trainer, so I'm not in the list. But I am working on that, and every review helps get me there. Do we need a little break or are we going to keep going?
Keep
Let's take a
going.
couple minute break.
All right, let's take a couple minute break and I will move through these slides. We'll come back at, I've got 12 minutes after the hour. Let's come back at about, let's say 15 minutes after the hour. We'll start slow. So if you lag a little bit, you won't miss much.
Can you go back to the QR code?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
There you are.
Hi, can I see the smart plans photo again, please? Slide.
The smart plan photo, this one?
No, not that one, the next one. It kind of broke down the ways to touch. It was like a what was it? 12 touch bi-weekly or something like that.
Oh, okay. Is it this one?
Yep, that's the one. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we are. Boy, 3 minutes goes by fast. All right, so I promised we'd start back into it slow. So we're going to review our daily success system. Um, Keep in mind that the purpose is to develop the mindset, the skills, and the tools you need to build relationships and secure an appointment with a potential buyer or seller. Daily success, not weekly, not monthly, not every so often, daily. Imagine you got a job. You go to this job and they say, we're going to pay you whatever you want to make. And here's what you need to do. You need to have 10 conversations with people you already know or people you want to know. We want you to add 10 new people to your database. And we need 4 critical pieces of information. That's name, phone, address, and email address. We're going to write 10 handwritten notes. Nothing in this system ever more prone to failure than handwritten notes. Let me tell you my opinion on this. I hate writing notes. I also know that when I go on an appointment with someone and a few days later I get a thank you card or a thank you postcard in the mail, I think that person's professional. We have gotten away from that. It always, you think about when you go to your mailbox. What do you open first? The thing that looks like a bill or the thing that's in a colored envelope with commemorative stamp that's got a handwritten address on it? Um, it's not a lost art, but it's certainly generational, and we got the power to bring that back. The other thing we want to do is we want to use the 10-5-1 model for social media engagement. Um, you've probably already talked about that. I have forgotten what the 10s and the 5s and the 1s are, but real estate is the least, right? Um, 10 likes, 5 shares, 1 statement, I think it is. Um, you're going to be accomplishing many of these goals during your success system time that you put in your calendar every day. And keep doing these activities even when Ignite is over, because that is going to build your business. This is a foolproof system. No one who does these things every day, 5 days a week, has ever failed in the history of real estate. I promise you. Promise, promise, promise. The first job of a real estate agent's lead generation, because the activity of generating leads is the foundation of your business. In addition, practicing conversations and dialogues will prepare you for success. That's appointments, signed agreements, signed contracts, sales closed, paychecks. And before we get involved in conversations about fear and lead generating, we must remember to comply with the TCPA and do not call regulations. And we review this every Ignite session because failure to do so is very expensive, up to $43,000 for violation. Now, if you can't think of what to say, you're in luck because I hope you can read this. But here's a great book. It's called Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents. And it's not necessarily about starting calls, but it is about follow-up conversations. And my favorite one, which is puts people at ease, is this might not be for you, but I just saw a property, blah, blah, blah. I know it probably is for you, but I'm taking the pressure off the conversation by saying it might not be for you. I'm just saying it's okay if you don't like it. I'm just bringing information. Um, so exactly what to say for real estate agents. Great book, easy read. And if you want to know what to practice in your conversation and dialogue practice, I would start right there. Again, do not violate the do not call list or the TCPA. Now, I believe we're going to skip past our role model and real play because that is in the classroom thing. Who has made a connection? Let me end this show right here. Who has made a connection in who's made a connection with your lead generation activities so far? Anyone? No one? To me, there's no better feeling than making a connection. What's going on here? Oh, okay, we got some people coming in. All right. Slideshow. Let's get back on it. We're going to move into follow up with leads, and I'm not going to make the mistake of not sharing my screen again. All right, we're looking at our slide for the next section. Somebody say yeah. Anybody?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Um, all right, so we've already been through this, so we can save some time by going through that. All right, now we're in section 11, which is follow up with leads. Last hour we discussed lead follow up. Today this session we're going to talk about what happens next. After lead generation, lead conversion is the most business critical activity you need to master. I know people that are great at lead generation, not great at lead conversion. So they generate the lead and then they just send it to someone else for a referral. And matter of fact, isn't that what Zillow does? They are marketing. Their lead generation is marketing, and then they do nothing else except sell a name and a phone number and an email address. And who's got the better gig? They get 30% of every lead they forward, and we get 70% of the one that we connected with. So master lead generation, then master lead conversion. Um, so in this section, we're going to apply the lead conversion model and develop your system for capturing, cultivating, converting, and closing leads. We're going to apply proven methods to increase your conversion rate over time. It's not going to happen instantly, but it is going to happen. Remember, time on task over time. Lead conversion is an essential part in the lead follow-up process. Often people assume that lead generation and lead conversion are the same, but it's not. Two different skill sets, you need to master them both. The effort you give to converting leads must match the effort you give to generating them. We've got our lead conversion process here, and converting a lead to an appointment is a process that can happen very quickly, but in most cases, it happens very slowly. Shift tells us that consistently getting every possible appointment from the leads you generate isn't complicated, but it requires preparation, practice, and purposeful action, a system. When the conversion step doesn't result in an appointment, what do you suppose happens next? You continue to cultivate the lead as part of your regular lead follow-up program because the right time for you is not always the right time for them. How do you ensure that you're there when the time is right for them? You keep on and keep on and keep on until they buy or they die. All right. Well, I already said this, that lead conversion is the most business critical activity you can master after you master lead generation. It's where possible business becomes probable business and then profitable business. We've talked about that. Converting appointments to business is also a key to your economic success. And you're going to learn about that in day 14 or session 14. So in this section, we're going to get into the specific steps of the lead conversion model for converting leads to appointments. And this model is going to help provide structure for your success and lay the groundwork for your future accomplishments. At its simplest, capturing is collecting the minimum amount of valid contact information for a potential buyer or seller. This includes their name and a way to get a hold of them, like their email or phone number. Most likely, this is going to occur while you're lead generating. Now, I like to have their address, and if they don't give me their address, then I'm going to look them up either through public record or some other way. Why do I want their physical address? because I know that most people are interested in the market where they live, what's going on in that market where they live. So once I have their address, Command does a very cool thing. If there is a designated neighborhood that contains their address, Command is automatically going to assign that neighborhood to them. And when Command does that, I can do something really powerful. If it's a buyer that's really interested in buying, and I've had the conversation about what neighborhood they want to buy in, I can add that additional neighborhood, but I can send them a biweekly or a monthly neighborhood nurture report. And this is the most powerful tool I think that we have in Command. I am interested in living in an area in Tampa, Florida someday, and I assigned myself to a monthly, no, a bi-weekly neighborhood nurture. So every 2 weeks, I get an email from me that tells me what's going on in the neighborhood where I live in Colorado, and it's got another tab in it that tells me what's going on in the neighborhood where I want to live in Tampa. And I know this works because several years ago, I went to list a property and it wasn't right for the seller. But they did have a property in Texas that they wanted to sell. I referred them to someone who was great at follow up. And about 3 years later, they called me back and they said, I just got this report from that agent down in Dallas. And they said that my property is worth this and the average time on the market is that. Is that true? If so, I want to put my house on the market immediately. And they forwarded me the email they got from the other agent. And I was embarrassed to see that it was just a neighborhood nurture with their neighborhood in Colorado. And they knew more about their market from in Colorado from their agent in Dallas than they did from their agent in Colorado. So I made a commitment to myself that I'm never going to fail in that way again. I sold that house. At the time, it was one of the more expensive properties in our MLS at about 500,000. And one thing that I can do really easily is calculate percentages of a sale price, and I made $15,000 on that transaction. Thank you, Dallas agent who put them on a neighborhood nurture. Now, everybody in my database who I know where they live or where they're going to is getting a monthly neighborhood nurture from me. Um, if you get their information from an open house, oh, how does the neighborhood reports get set up? It's automatic. So when you put their information in there, if you add their physical address or where they're interested, the neighborhood where they're interested in living, Command will assign them a neighborhood based on their address if one exists. And there are thousands of them across the nation. If they're outside of that neighborhood, then you can have a conversation, ask them where they're interested in, and you can manually assign that neighborhood to them by using the map feature. And then you go into the smart plan section and you just assign them the smart plan. There are two of them, a biweekly neighborhood nurture that's more urgent if they're in the market and you don't want to slip. Or the monthly neighborhood nurture is a follow-up program. And by the way, it sends something out once a month, which is 12 touches, which fits really nicely in our touch program. Um, so um, I think it's the most powerful. Probably sold more things from that neighborhood nurture than any other part of Command. So when you're capturing information, it's important to know what you're going to say before starting the conversation, right? As a matter of fact, Phil Jones, the author of Exactly What to Say, says the worst possible time for you to think about what you're going to say is when you need to say it. So you need to be prepared. And how can you be prepared all the time for what you're going to say? There are certain things that every conversation in real estate has in common. And if you read this book and you study this book, you're going to internalize those and they're going to come out conversationally. So if I were to say to you, what's your email address? You immediately think, oh, this guy's going to spam me. But if I found out the information that you've just asked for, what would be the best way for me to get it to you? And then you're going to say, call me, text me, email me. Great. How do I do that? And then you're going to give me the information. So, things to ask yourself is how are you currently capturing leads? What information are you collecting? And what are your current lead categories? You can create any number of tags you want. There's a lot of them built into Command. You may not need to add any, but if there's something that you're missing, Like, say, Broncos fan, you want to tag somebody with a Broncos fan. I'm not going to send the Raiders team schedule to someone that's a Broncos fan. That would be the ultimate sin. So I need to know about you through conversations so I can personalize what I'm sending to you. Sounds like it takes a lot of time. You're only doing this 10 times a day. It doesn't take that long. Second step is to connect. Connecting is about laying the foundation for a working relationship. What is important during this step is to listen, ask good questions, listen to the response, not think about your next question. And then you want to determine their urgency so you can make yourself available. As you communicate and connect, keep these things in mind. You want to embed your value proposition into the conversation and not make it sound like a presentation. It's a conversation. Build confidence and have confidence demonstrated through knowing what you're going to say. Role play, practice conversations, know your market data. Connecting is more than just small talk because you're going to be purposeful. Your communication should seek to answer 6 basic questions. Who are they? What do they want? Or what do they need to do? Where do they want or need to do it? Why is it important to them? When do they want or need to do it? And how do they plan to do it? These questions also help whoever you're speaking to open up. I'm not gonna drill you with 6 questions. I'm just gonna say, hey, all right, tell me a little bit about yourself. What's important to you? What is it that you're hoping for as an outcome? Oh, you need to move to the area. When do you need to move to the area? All right, okay. Why is that important to you? What would happen if that didn't happen, right? So it's just a conversation. It's not a questionnaire. In your participant guide, you also have a list of questions categorized by buyers and sellers that you can customize and put it into your words. As you go through the connection process and cultivate the relationship, you'll learn more about the person and what they're looking to do as you learn if they are looking to buy or sell. And you can start to use these questions also. So be sure to document your conversations. You've got command up there. You're calling someone. You've got their contact information. You can just take a few notes as you're talking. Now, if that seems rude to you, then just write a few notes down. And at the end of the conversation, just take a few notes so that the next time you call them, you can read about your previous conversation. It's 10 conversations a day, 50 conversations a week. It's going to be hard to keep track of all of them. But the last time I talked to you, you were taking your kids to a softball tournament. How did the softball tournament turn out? Fantastic. Or, well, you know what? There's always next year. Whatever it is, the fact that I remembered that they went to the softball tournament gets me that much closer to them. Your goal in using the lead conversion model is to move immediately from capture to connect and then to close. But you're going to find that a percentage of your leads just not going to be ready to convert to an appointment. That's okay. Keep mind share. You want to remain top of mind, so you're going to use that touch program to stay in touch with them. Remember what it's called, a 19 to connect. You're not ready to meet yet, then I'm going to contact you 19 times. Obviously, I'm not going to say that, but that's my intent. And once we do connect, the 1 to cement, and then the 36 to convert, of which now we know that 12 of those could be the neighborhood nurture. You start to implement your touch programs, you can always pursue creating your own touch campaigns to fit your business needs. But you've got a real estate business in a box when you log into Command. Cultivation is the step in the model that agents find themselves struggling with. I know that was bad grammar. Why do agents struggle in the cultivation stage? Anybody got any ideas? Okay, agents struggle during cultivation because they don't have the right systems in place to continue to follow up on that lead. You're in a perfect position right now to develop this habit. Talk to the person, write down the keynotes of the conversation, immediately insert them into command and assign a smart plan or a follow-up call. I'm really busy right now. Can we talk next Tuesday? Absolutely. What time is good for you? 10 a.m. Great. I'm putting in a command next Tuesday. Call Charlie Brown at 10 a.m. Closing is when you ask for the appointment. A lot of times we have fear around this part, but this is the framework. You're concluding one conversation and seeing if there's a new one to be had. It's not their responsibility to ask for an appointment. It's your responsibility to ask for an appointment. Just like touches you used to stay in emotional proximity have varying degrees of effectiveness, so does the format in which you ask for a close. You get asked in a text message, email, phone call, in person. Of those four, text message, email, phone call, and in person, which do you think is the most effective?
In person.
In person, right. It's really hard to be mad at me when you meet me in person because I smile a lot and I'm friendly. If I send you an email, you can always pretend that you didn't see the email. When you're setting the appointment, what are the important elements to schedule? Well, first off, you're not looking for just a yes. As soon as you get the yes, you should immediately schedule the appointment at everyone's earliest convenience. This means date, time, location. Wouldn't make much sense to make an appointment and then they show up at one coffee shop and you show up at their house. So know where you're going to meet, what time. And as soon as you get the yes, start moving to the next thing. One thing to keep in mind is location. Where would be a great location? If you're not meeting at their house, meet somewhere in public, just like the dating world. Meet in front of witnesses. At the office, for a time, there was some violence committed against real estate agents, and it seemed to be happening more and more often. And we coached all of our agents. The first meeting should be in the office. I can tell you that many people would tell you that if you make an appointment and the person keeps it, you have a 60% chance, 60% better chance of closing a transaction with that person because they made a date and they kept it. If their intent is to knock you in the head and take your wallet, they're less likely to do that when they met you in the office and other people saw them there. So keep that in mind. Another trick that I like to use, send them to my lender first before we meet. Why? Because my lender is probably going to verify their ID. If they're going to pull credit or whatever, they're going to need some personal information. And now if I, end up getting knocked in the head, my lender's going to go, now that you mention it, he did have me call this person and said he had an appointment on Saturday. Saturday's the day he disappeared. It's kind of macabre to think of that, but it does happen. So always keep in mind that your safety is paramount. Now turn to the KW belief system in your participant guide, and we're going to talk about our beliefs. In the end, Carol says if they can meet and have a good enough reason to meet, they will meet. And if they won't or they don't, they won't. And that's okay. You really don't care what their answer ultimately is because you're not getting people to do anything they don't want to do. No matter how good a salesperson you are, you can't force somebody to buy something. You're just going to ask and respond until they agree that meeting with you makes sense or it doesn't. Either way, you both win. And that's what Gary says in the Shift book. All right, any ahas from this section? One aha, please. Somebody hadn't talked yet. Is this thing on?
Of something. I like the 6 connection questions. It just kind of helps you be engaged with the clients, kind of give you some talking points. Just it kind of keeps the flow going. So that's good information that I can kind of take with me.
Thank you, Felicia. That's right. It's kind of a roadmap for the conversation, right? And just like you might take a detour to get some gas, you might take a detour to have a more in-depth conversation about something. But if you memorize those six ideas, then you're
Mm-hmm.
never going to run out of things to say.
Yep.
Eva says lead generation is not the same as lead conversion. Absolutely
Mm-hmm.
right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, now you've been exposed to the model and the steps and the action it takes to convert a lead to an appointment. Now we're going to dive a little deeper into what a conversion rate is and how it can inform your business decisions. But when I was going through MAPS coach training, um, I thought this was going to be really boring, but this is my favorite part because if I know how many people you have to talk to make a commission, and I know what your average commission is, and then I ask you and you tell me how much money you want to make, I can tell you exactly how many people you're going to have to call or communicate with in order to hit that goal. And it's very simple and very uncanny how accurate it is. Now, how do you get a conversion rate? You track the numbers, right? In Bold, they used to give us a worksheet, and on that worksheet, every time you communicate it with someone, it's not leaving a voicemail, but every time you get a two-way text or a two-way conversation, you put a little tick mark on a page. Every day is a new page. And my goal is to have in Bold 20 of these a day. And I know that it's not rocket science. The reason it's 20 conversations a day, because 20 conversations a day for 5 days is 100 conversations. And we know and we can prove over and over and over again that every 100 conversations leads to an appointment. And every two appointments leads to a paycheck. So what's so magic about Bold? You have to go in and report your conversations. And if you don't, and everybody else does, it's a bad feeling. So you don't want to do it too many times. And then the people that don't lie about their numbers achieve very high results. I think on average, 14 pieces of business over 7 weeks, something like that. It's pretty tremendous. If you're converting at a low percentage, this should tell you that you have a lead conversion challenge. The challenge is not the number of leads generated necessarily, but your ability to get them to an appointment. So next, we're going to look at ways to improve your conversion rates. So look at your improve your conversion rate page in the participant guide. Once you understand what your conversion rate is, and by the way, yours is going to be different than mine, mine's going to be different from everybody else's, should be really close to 100 to 1, though. You can move from E to P. Anybody know what E to P means? It's part of our 6 personal perspectives. And one of the things that I regret is when I started in this company 20 something years ago, we started each class with 6 personal perspectives. And so we really learned the values and the perspective that we need to be successful. E to P is entrepreneurial, which is where most of us start with just doing stuff, see what happens, to purposeful. Purposeful is more like my conversion rate is 100 to 1, so I know if I need an appointment, I need to talk to 100 people. And maybe someday I can get that down to 90 to 1 or 80 to 1. You remember from day one, that E to P is one of Keller Williams' 6 personal perspectives. This is when you get more purposeful in improving your conversion rate. Gaining insight and getting more purposeful will ultimately bring you more closed transactions. Think about any sport or any activity. I don't care what it is, sewing or swimming or golfing or driving or whatever it is. When you first start that, you have to concentrate and you have to think about it really hard. Let's use golf for an example, because I'm a terrible golfer. I wouldn't even consider myself a golfer, but I can hit a ball, and sometimes I can hit it inbounds. But when I'm golfing, which I do maybe 2 or 3 times a year, I'm only concentrating on hitting the ball because it's embarrassing when you miss the ball. I don't care where the ball goes. Once I develop the skill to hit the ball most of the time, then I start working on hitting the ball where I want it to go. And once I am pretty good at hitting the ball where I want it to go, then I can look out at the fairway and say, where do I want this ball to go? That's where I'm aiming. Doesn't happen overnight. It happens with practice. Um, Entrepreneurial is just trying to hit the ball. Purposeful is trying to hit the ball where I need the ball to be. Time block for lead conversion. If you erase it, you must replace it. That's 2 times I said that. And use conversations and systems. Practice your conversations. Exactly what to say. Dialogues. Ask for the close. It's much better for your friend to tell you no than a stranger and feel that rejection. I just want to remind you that when someone says, no, I'm not available to meet with you that day, it's no different than when you call your doctor to make an appointment and they say, how about next Tuesday at 10? And you go, no, I'm not available Tuesday at 10. It's not that you don't want or need to go to the doctor. It's just that Tuesday at 10 doesn't work for you. The person making the appointment doesn't feel rejection when you say, no, Tuesday at 10 doesn't work. They make another suggestion. That's you having another conversation. You want to master your buyer and seller presentations because an appointment is the natural conclusion to a well presented presentation. You can tell that wasn't scripted. But an appointment is the natural conclusion to a purposeful real estate conversation. And you use those systems to support your lead conversion in your business. Don't neglect any part of your database. Reconnect with each person. And when you do, ask for referrals. Remember that just because you had a goal of talking with someone every 3 months, once a quarter, and you forgot last quarter, don't continue to ignore them because you're embarrassed because they didn't know you were supposed to call them. They're going to be surprised and delighted that you call them again. Remember what it feels like when someone says, I was just thinking about you. And I thought I'd just call and see how things are going for you. This is a great time of year to start calling people and say, listen, I'm planning my vacations for the year. And so what I'm doing in January is reaching out to everybody I care about and asking what their real estate plans are for the year. Because if you're planning on buying or selling a piece of real estate, I want to make sure I'm here to serve you. So if you are thinking that you might be interested in doing something this year, when would that be so I can put it in my calendar and make sure that I don't miss the opportunity to help you? Learn that from Ben Kinney. It sounds silly, but it works. And know who to prioritize. In one of the upcoming sessions in lead follow-up, you're going to learn how to prioritize potential clients. Prioritizing converting those qualified leads, and then continue to work on the rest of your database. A cash buyer that's here on a house hunting trip because they're getting transferred. I'm moving heaven and earth to meet with that person. It's cash, and they've got a limited time window to make a decision. I'm moving everything else around. Everything else can wait. Every lead has the potential to turn into business. And as you've already heard, there are no bad leads. There's some leads that are now leads, and there's some leads that are later leads. With the lead conversion model, you've learned to capture the appropriate information. Remember, name, address, phone number, email address. Connect to assess their needs and establish a relationship in a conversational way, and continue to cultivate that relationship because not all people will convert directly to an appointment, even though that'd be great. You got to use touch campaigns so that they don't forget about you. You close by asking for the appointment. And there's a section in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book about different types of close. And they talk about it in exactly what to say as well. So it's kind of modernized. But there are presumptive closes, there are takeaway closes. And an example of a takeaway close, which is kind of fun, is, I'll go on a listing presentation. I've got the appointment already. I go on a listing presentation. I go, just to set the tone for this meeting. There's one of three outcomes. One is going to be that you're going to choose to do business with me, and I hope that's the case. The other is going to be that you choose not to be in business with me, and that's okay. The third option that you might not have thought about is I might decide that I can't help you. And if that's the case, I'd rather I'd rather turn you down now than let you down later. And the example of that would be somebody that's not realistic on price. I don't need another listing. I don't need another for sale sign. You know what I need? A closing, a sold sign. That's the business I'm in. So if I can't help you, it's okay. Maybe I can help you another day. It might not be our time. All right. So with that, um, we have successfully slid into home base with the conclusion of section 11. So you can scan that QR code or use the one that you did before. And it's kwueval.com. I'm Tony Greer. And I hope that I did this wonderful class justice because this class has made plenty of successful real estate agents. I want to remind you that when you do have a closing, KW Cares is unique in our industry and that we help other people around us. Having been here in 21 years, I've seen KW Cares help people pay their mortgage or their rent when they're going through chemotherapy. I've seen people in natural disasters like hurricanes and wildfires and earthquakes and things like that who didn't know what was going to happen next. Um, just have money arrive in their bank accounts, and you never know when it's going to happen. If everyone does a little bit, no one has to do a lot. So my wife and I each contribute just $5 from a closing, right? Making thousands of bucks. I give $5 for each closing. At 100 closings a year, then that means that between the two of us, we're contributing $1,000 a year. It's a drop in the bucket, but we're 170,000 agents strong. And if every agent did that, it'd be a lot of money. And then we could help even more people. KW Next Gen is Gary's mission to help young adults who want to get into business learn how to be young business people. Wouldn't that have been a fantastic thing for the older students? Wouldn't that have been a fantastic thing when you're in your early 20s to learn what it was like to build a business? And someday maybe you'll get certified to teach Quantum Leap and you'll be able to change some other young person's life. When I was a MAPS coach, I volunteered to coach people in the KW Next Gen organization. I coached 2 young adults every quarter. It's very rewarding and it's nice to see the light come on in a young person's life. With that, I'm going to stop sharing, turn the camera back on, and ask for some ahas from today. This is the time where you really tell me that I changed your life and you can't wait till the next time I teach.
Tony, I like the time block sentence of you can't remove something without replacing it.
Yes.
That's really that hit me like it's so small and simple, but I think that's going to be very important.
You think about this, I mean, lead generation is new to most of us, right? And it's January, right? So it's mid-January. Most of the people that had a New Year's resolution to work out more are finished with that already. But think about how this happens, right? So you make a commitment to join a gym and work out every day. I'm going to work out every day. This year, I'm going to take charge of my physical fitness. I'm going to go to the gym every day. And then on January 2nd, January 1st, you're right there, right? Nobody that goes to the gym all the time likes the first 2 weeks of January because it's so crowded, right? And then what happens? One day it's cold or something happens and it's just not going to work out. You got something going and you don't have time to work out, so you don't. And then the next day, you realize that you've lost your momentum and now it's not going to happen again. And then the next day, maybe mornings aren't a good time. Eventually, I'm gonna plan a time to put working out on my schedule. Imagine that with just one small different action, which is I can't work out this morning because I have an appointment first thing in the morning. So I'm going to work out at lunchtime or I'm going to work out after work. I don't not work out. I just work out at a different time so that I don't lose that momentum. You know, the old rule, objects in motion tend to stay in motion. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest. Until you develop the habit where you feel like you're missing out on something with your daily lead generation, lead conversion activities, um, you're at risk, right? So just doing it, we call in the book the one thing, the 66-day challenge. Do the same thing for 66 consecutive days. You'll develop a habit. I was in my top agent's office a couple of weeks ago. I just dropped in on a Thursday, and here's 10 agents on this team in a little room, all have headsets on, all chirping, right? And I go, what in the world's going on here? Well, today is our smiling and dialing day. Right. And so they're all in the same room and they're all making calls. They're all making follow-up calls, calling their sphere. And when they get an appointment or referral, they reach outside and they ring a bell. So I'm walking through the office. I see this guy reach out and ring a bell. I said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Today's smiling and dialing." And I jokingly said, "Well, everybody knows that nobody in real estate smiles and dials anymore." And the guy without even thinking, he had a great response. The number one team in our MLS does. What? That's the difference between number one and number everybody else. Number one smiles and dials. They're not cold calling. They're responding to leads and they're calling their friends and family to remind them they're in real estate. Real simple. Don't put yourself in a place where you're going to be rejected or even feel like rejected. Call your mom. I called my mom in bold. I called my mom one day. I said, "Mom, I'm just calling to remind you I'm in real estate." And she goes, "Well, I'll be danged. I'd forgotten all about that." And she was serious, right? She got memory problems. I said, "Yeah, so if you know of anybody that's buying or selling, let me know." And she goes, "Well, you don't work here." I go, "Yeah, but I can find them a good agent. So at a weak moment, they don't hire a weak agent." She said, "I didn't know you could do that." So never think that your family is going to remember you in the real estate business just because they're your family. At the end of the day, they got their own lives. They got all kinds of business. And they're not even going to hear about somebody's real estate need unless you are staying in the top of their mind. So they're always thinking about real estate and they're thinking about you. That's all I got. What do you think? I'm going to be looking at these reviews. And if I get bad reviews, I'm going to know I failed and I'm going to resent you for not telling me in real time.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed the heck out of myself. I hope that you got some value tonight. And I think there are a couple of openings. So if you would like to have me back someday, then let the people that are organizing this know, and I'd be happy to come back.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Good
Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Have a great night.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Good night.
Thank you, Tony.